All right, hello guys. We are here. The new college football rankings has been posted and everybody has been posting about it on their rants and how it's just awful. So of course I'm going to hop on that train and I'm going to give my personal opinion and my big takeaways. So be prepared for me to rant on some stuff because I am absolutely stunned by some of the choices on this. I was actually breathtaking. It's absurd. Well, first off, let's start off with Georgia at number one is pretty normal. Michigan at number two, normal. Ohio State and Alabama, though I feel like those two spots, and they agree with me, could easily be flip flopped. But I would say Alabama maybe over Ohio State, but that is just, that doesn't piss me off on another level. But LSU at number five, me personally, as an Arizona State fan, Jaden Daniels showed major inconsistency, and we're going to act like a very talented LSU, which is quote unquote returning a lot of players. We're going to act like they didn't get walked all over by Tennessee and by Georgia and even by Texas A&M. Like, we're going to act like that didn't happen, right, guys, and place him at number five. I think that is a little kind of crazy to put them here. I would almost put them right here at number seven. But of course, it's hard for me to do that, and it makes me think they're in a good spot because they have USC at number six, and I cannot put USC any higher. Cannot. Because honestly, USC just doesn't have the most extreme defense ever. They have a fantastic offense, probably one of the best offenses in the league this year, but that can only take you so far. And ultimately, their defense is just horrendous. It is just, it improved, but it is very bad. And that just, to me, is like, I can't put them any higher. That's what keeps them there. I'd almost put Penn State at number five instead of LSU, but the problem is I don't have too much knowledge on Penn State. All I know is that they lost to two college football playoff contending teams last year, one of which almost knocked out the national championship winner. They missed a field goal. And the other one played in a horrendous game and barely lost by 6 points in the end. So, to me, this Penn State team is a little underrated just because of the fact of all the clout and whatnot these teams are receiving. It's like Penn State only lost to those two teams. They kicked Utah's ass in the Rose Bowl. When Utah went against Ohio State, it was a 3-point game, came down to the wire. Penn State owned the game against Utah. Really, I think Utah scored a touchdown kind of towards the end of the game to make it a bit closer, and even then it's still a 14-point game. So I'd almost say maybe Penn State at the very minimum would go up to number six and replace USC spot. FSU at number eight is a pretty normal take. I agree with that at number eight. It is kind of difficult to put them higher, in my opinion, because they really were a sketchy team last year, barely winning certain games. And like that Oklahoma game, that bowl game is just like, man, it would be a tough one. Clemson at number nine. Wow, Clemson at number nine is just an awful take. Sorry, I was looking at my phone. Let's lock in. Clemson at number nine is a horrible placement. Clemson, they will have a good defense, but it's kind of like Iowa. Like, you can have a good defense, and a good defense can take you so far, but there's a big fat question mark sitting on the fact that Clemson's offense is like, I don't know if it can even compete. Like, a Florida State offense versus a Clemson defense versus a Clemson offense versus Florida defense. To be honest, it's like they're not going to survive. They're not. If you get constant defensive stops, but you can't move the ball and progress, you're not going to win a game. Iowa showed that to us like last year. They finished off pretty good, like what, 7-5, 8-5 or something like that. But against teams like Florida State and whatnot, Clemson's going to end up like down here at the end of the season. It's just annoying because after all, we all said all season last year. Clemson was overrated and didn't deserve to be where they were placed. And you'd think, right, that they would fix their ranking and be like, all right, everybody was like crazy about Clemson. No, they stick them right back in the same spot. And what makes me so mad is they placed them above Washington. Above Washington, the same team that beat Texas, which I know whatever. Texas wasn't like, they were a 5-loss team last year, whatever. But Washington beat Texas. Washington, like they were fantastic last year. They lost in a close game to UCLA. I mean, yes, it was like they were down a bigger point deficit at the end of the game, but it ultimately came down to an onside kick. Who would recover it? And they lost to ASU in a game that they totally 1,000,000% should have won. Had they not lost that game to ASU, they would have won the Pac-12 championship against USC. They would have. Because USC was like all injured and shitty in that game. Washington would have been a college football playoff contender. And had that happened, had that gone the way it should have, them not taking a stupid loss to ASU off of a stupid head reflection pick six that ultimately was the deficit of the game. Had that happened, Washington would be right here. Washington would be right here. Or maybe even just like right here. Washington would be right there. No question. Because if they would have done that, that would have been no question. They would have made the college football playoff. Who knows what would have happened to them there, but it would have been no question that they were going to be ranked up here. But it's because they lost that game that they're going to get placed under Clemson. Clemson? That's ridiculous. I do believe the reason why they placed Washington over Texas was because of that bowl game. And another thing why Washington's ranked so low, they literally owned Texas in that bowl game. I get Texas has added a lot onto the team and Washington hasn't added on as much. But ultimately, is what Texas added on enough to fill in the point deficit that Washington had? Let's be real. Washington entered the time-draining game at like the start of the fourth quarter. They were up the whole game, and the final score is closer than it actually was. Washington beat the crap. Of course, now this is all talk from last year. It could be different. I don't mind the placement of Texas at number 11 at all. I agree. I'm just saying Washington should be like not behind Clemson. That's insane. Behind Clemson is insane. It's so annoying that this stupid little team that I hate so much is placed in the top 10, not even barely fitting in. They're in. They're not right on the edge. They're in the top 10. It's crazy. It is insane. Another crazy one. Tennessee beat the shit out of Clemson with this team. With this team that they're bringing in this year. The team that is going to be playing for Tennessee, that they have preseason number 12, beat Clemson. They beat them. So what is going on there? If anything, I'd have Clemson ranked like right here with under Notre Dame. I'd have them right here. Honestly, actually probably above Notre Dame. But having them 3 spots under Clemson is bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers bullshit crazy. It's insane. It's disrespectful. It's like Tennessee whacks them. And Clemson was overrated all season long. I mean, of course, we're taking a big step back into history. Clemson barely walked out of Wake Forest with an overtime victory. Clemson barely beat many teams. I'd say the most secure win they had was over North Carolina, which surprised the shit out of me. And like they literally lost at home to South Carolina, which let's just give a little foreshadowing. Where is that team? Clemson should not be ranked this high. They should be placed probably at number 12. This Tennessee team is not getting the respect they deserve. Honestly, I really like their quarterback. They have a lot of returning talent, and they're going to be a good-ass team. Now, I just feel like the problem about like you wanting to move Tennessee up, you've got a lot of competition here. A lot. I feel like number 12 is kind of disrespectful, though, nonetheless. against a team like Florida State and Clemson. I mean, these teams barely finished where they were last season. Florida State was like number 11 or something like that, and Clemson was like number 10. I don't remember. To move them up like that, it's hard, especially with ACC teams. It's, I mean, the same boat that the Pac-12 teams are in. I'd say on a worse scale for the ACC though, because nonetheless, ACC was the worst conference last year by a long shot, and there to be having two teams in the top 10 is a hot take. I don't mind the Florida State one, but Clemson, nuh-uh. Now let's talk about Notre Dame. I feel like this is actually a perfect spot for Notre Dame because they have the toughest schedule in the league by far. They have to play Ohio State, at Clemson, and USC. That's the number 3 team, the number 6 team, and the number 9 team. Personally, I don't think Notre Dame wins those games. Now, they did kind of strike gold in terms of the home field advantage. They host Ohio State and they host USC, but they're at Clemson. I'd say that would be Clemson's best game of the year right there. That their most likely chance at making a statement for themselves would be that game. But nonetheless, I think Notre Dame maximum next season obtains 3 losses because I think they're also they're playing at Louisville, I think maybe at Duke or something like that. It's Notre Dame is they've got a very, very tough schedule, and I just don't see how they are developed enough in the offseason to be a 1 or 2 loss team against the strength of their schedule. I think they'll go 3 loss, and this is a perfect spot for them. Utah at 14, nice voice crack. Utah 14, yeah, but I think they'll finish off the season lower. Now, of course, this is the preseason and whatnot. My prediction is different from the preseason top 25 or the official top 25 for this season. So 14 seems like a pretty good spot. Not going to argue there for Utah, but I do think they'll finish off a 4-loss team next year. Oregon at 15, all right, I think this is a good spot for Oregon, but what is pissing me off is the amount of people that are saying Oregon's going to go a 1-loss team with a Pac-12 championship win. It's insane. I mean, have people looked at the strength of the Oregon schedule? To be honest, Notre Dame has the hardest schedule by a long shot. But I'd say probably coming in a close second would have to be Oregon. They play at Texas Tech for the second game of the year. They have to play USC. They play at Washington. They play Oregon State. And they play at Utah. Not in that order, but those are just some of the games they have to play. I mean, I don't mean to blow my own whistle, but they have to play at ASU. And tell me when the last time they've won at ASU was. Not 2019 when they literally had Justin Herbert in a national championship lined up team. I'm just saying. Now that's a whole lot of talk. I'm just saying this for the people that are like, Oregon's going to win a Pac-12 championship. No, they're fucking not. Oregon is not going to win a fucking Pac-12 championship. And if they fucking do, and I said this shit, you can laugh at me then, because I am so certain that this team is not going to win a Pac-12 championship. They'll be good. I'm not saying they're bad, but their schedule's way too strong to be having them go 1-loss team. It's insane. Truly insane. And the committee agrees with every word that I'm saying because they have plenty of teams ranked above them. Now we got Kansas State. Kansas State, I think they'll finish off a 3-loss team, probably finishing in this spot. I think they host TCU. I think they're on the road at Texas. A big game for me is they're on the road at Oklahoma State. Now, I'm not too high on Oklahoma State this year, but man, there's going to be some fat revenge on their mind after that embarrassment. But of course, I'm talking about the schedule. This is for the AP. I think this is perfectly fine for Kansas State. Actually, I would probably swap these two just because, yes, TCU did lose to Kansas State in the Big 12 championship, but TCU also won against Kansas State in this season. And overall, TCU finished off a one-loss team going into the college football playoffs, and they made it to the national championship. I feel like they should not be. I feel like it's kind of just disrespectful, and TCU fans might agree with me being placed under Kansas State. I get Kansas State won in the Big 12 championship, but TCU made it to the national championship. Number 17 is quite the step. At maximum, I'd say you swap these two. Number 18 for Oregon State. That's where they will start, and that's most likely where they will finish. Another perfect spot, just like Notre Dame. Oregon State, they host Utah, and then like the rest of their schedule is light up until the at U of A game. I think that will start the downfall, and they'll go like 3-loss, maybe 4-loss. But they'll be a good team. They got DJ Ugalaballs or whatever. He's not a good quarterback, in my opinion. But Oregon State managed to be as good as they were last year without a good quarterback. I mean, their quarterback numbers were horrendous, and now they're actually finding somebody who could potentially throw the ball. He can throw the ball. I mean, he wasn't good at Clemson, but he definitely was able to do a lot more than the Oregon State quarterback was. So this could be a very underrated Oregon State team. I just think playing at Oregon is too tough. I think they have to play at Washington. I think that's too tough. And I think they play at U of A. I think that'll be U of A's big upset of the year. Wisconsin. All right, so we had a cool off session. We had a nice little breather, and now we're right back into the bullshit, ladies and gentlemen. Wisconsin at number 19 is fucking insane. I hate this shit. No matter how good a team did in the offseason, they could have gotten fucking Tom Brady's blessed from God on videotape son, who was just outstanding in high school. I don't give a fuck, because Wisconsin went 6-6 last year, or 7-6. I don't know if they won or lost their bowl game. It wasn't memorable because this team was a fucking void team. And overall, they were ranked at like this spot last season, and they lost to Washington State in the second game of the year. Does the committee not learn? I feel like it's kind of hard for them to learn. Just because their name is Wisconsin and, they did good in recruiting and good in the transfer portal and they're building up a team, I don't care. They went 6-6. They do not deserve a reward with the number 19 ranking. A number 19 ranking? For going 6-6 in the previous season? I'm going to repeat myself. I don't give a fuck how good you did in the offseason. You did awful last season. After already being blessed in the same fashion and form, you did awful. You should lose your chance. Again, Wisconsin's ranked at number 19 after having an awful season. Where is South Carolina? Where are they? And then that brings us on to the next one. A team that finished off even worse than Wisconsin. They finished off 6-7. They lost to West Virginia. This team sucked dog balls. They were not good. Oklahoma forever has been one of the best teams. One of the best teams, always ranked in the top 10. They sucked ass. And want to know what was funny? They were number 10 or something before they got absolutely waxed by TCU. They were ranked even higher before they lost to Kansas State, and then they got absolutely slaughtered by TCU. But no one cares. We're going to act like the previous season didn't happen. Oklahoma got a bunch of 5 stars. Number 20, no. I don't give a fuck what they did in the offseason. They had a horrible season. Do not reward them. They don't deserve a reward. You're putting North Carolina, Ole Miss, Tulane under them. Tulane. Are we going to forget Tulane pulled off one of the most extraordinary comebacks and beat the number 6 team? I get the USC team has changed drastically, as well as Tulane has, but still, to take Tulane from a final ranking of number 7 or number 9 and put them at 24 under these two shitheads is just disrespectful. It's just disrespectful. I don't care what these teams' histories are. I don't care if they have won national championships or how many conference championships they've won. They just had awful seasons. They shouldn't be up here. They shouldn't be rewarded. There's no reason. North Carolina had one of their best seasons in a long time, and they get placed under these two teams for what? The committee, I've seen so much about this Drake May guy, and so many people have spoke so highly of him. I haven't done the research on him and whatnot, but nonetheless, I've heard so much more word. I don't even know who's starting for Oklahoma. I don't know who's starting for Wisconsin. but I know who's starting. Like, that alone is just, like, triggering because it's like, I don't even know who these fuckers quarterbacks are, but yet we have, like, potential Heisman runner-up and people talking so highly of this guy, and they place him under these two teams. It's like, what did Oklahoma and Wisconsin do to deserve such a high ranking? They were awful last season. There is my, not my last, but one of my very big rants. 21, North Carolina, of course, I'd have them up here rather than Wisconsin and Oklahoma. North Carolina, I actually have them lined up for a pretty good season. I think this is a somewhat respectable spot. I mean, they finished off like a 4-loss team last year. They took, I think, like, they lost to NC State at North Carolina, which was a pretty relatively bad loss, especially with the home field, and they were just a better team. They lost to Notre Dame, which Notre Dame was really good, and they got killed by Clemson, which was bad, and then they lost in a 1-point game to Oregon. They weren't a bad team, and I mean, they've only really improved since then. So this North Carolina team, I have them lined up for a pretty good season. Actually, my predictions are kind of wacky for this team, and it's a pretty hot take, but it just shows my hatred for Clemson. I actually have North Carolina upsetting Clemson next year and taking their spot in the ACC championship, going up against Florida State. I just don't like this Clemson team. I don't think they'll be good. I think North Carolina would be a lot better. Ole Miss at number 22. They open up the season at Tulane. To be perfectly honest, I think that's a loss for them. But number 22 is a pretty respectable spot. I mean, they got Spencer Sanders there. They've got their old quarterback like Jason Dart or something. They did really good in the transfer portal, and they did pretty good in recruiting. Like, They improved a lot. They deserve to be ranked. They were overrated very hardly last year. But again, I mean, I don't blame the committee for overrating them. I actually dislike the hate that they were getting. The committee was getting railed. But I mean, it's an SEC team that was undefeated and had wins over teams like Kentucky and whatnot, who at the time were ranked. I don't blame them, but I'm just like trailing. Now we get another one. Another Wisconsin-Oklahoma situation that pisses me the fuck off. Texas A&M went 5-7 last year with a loss to Appalachian State. I think it was even at Texas A&M. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't give a fuck what this team did in the offense. If Rob Gronkowski fucked a kangaroo and pooped out a Mike Tyson kangaroo mix that could throw Hail Marys like it was nothing, I don't give a fuck what players you got. You went 5-7 last year. What makes the committee think this team deserves a ranking? They played so shitty last season. They were so bad. To be ranking them instead of South Carolina, to be ranking this team instead of South Carolina is just insane. I'm not going to go crazy. I went off earlier. I'm done yelling and whatnot. I wasn't really yelling, but I'm done. Tulane at 24. I think they should be ranked higher, of course, because I didn't even have these three in my thoughts of being ranked. I have Texas A&M actually finishing off a pretty good season. Don't get me wrong. I'm actually less mad about this one than I am about these two. Yes, they finished off 5-7 and overall had the worst season out of the three teams that should be ranked. But I still have Texas A&M finishing off a 4-loss team, doing their average Texas A&M season. But nonetheless, I don't think they deserve a ranking at all. I just don't think they do at all. And now that brings us to Iowa. This team has brought a lot of controversy. People either agree and think Iowa is going to have a good season and they've improved, or they harshly disagree. I'm split. Iowa had a good defense last year, and now they're bringing in a quarterback who led their team to the playoffs and whatever. So Iowa could potentially have an offense. To be honest, though, I wouldn't have them in my top 25. I'm not pissed off because I I'm not pissed off because personally, if I would fix the top 25, this team would find their way in because I'd knock out Texas A&M, Wisconsin, and Oklahoma. So they'd fit in right with Texas Tech and South Carolina. So I'm pretty split about Iowa. The changes I would make, I've made it very clear. I would kick out A&M, I would kick out Oklahoma, and I would kick out Wisconsin. And very first thing I would do, I would throw Texas Tech in there. Throw them in. And then I would throw South Carolina in. I'd probably have Texas Tech at 19 or 20 and South Carolina at 19 or 20. This South Carolina, I kind of disrespected them in my prediction video. I truly did forget how actually good the South Carolina team was. And overall, they took some really shitty losses last season. They should have been a much better team than what their record stated. And overall, they will do better in the SEC than I gave them credit for. Not going to change the prediction video. I don't want to change it. I just don't want to change it unless I make a whole video about it. But I am actually a lot more higher on this South Carolina team. I truly did forget how good they were last season. And as well as Texas Tech. I mean, I'm already pretty high on them. I didn't forget how good this team was. I know how good this team is. They were ranked from, so there was this website where I would get all my schedules from called FBS Schedules. FBS Schedules. And they originally, with the very early ESPN ranking, they had Texas Tech at 20. Which I was like, hey, that's pretty respectable. You know what? I actually really liked this Texas Tech team last year, and I thought they were fully capable of pulling off multiple upsets. And then this one was released, and they got moved down to 24. I was like, oh, darn, that sucks. And then this one was released, and they kicked them out. Personally, kicking out Texas Tech for Iowa was hard. That was a hard pill to swallow. But I straight up spit the pill out when I saw these three teams ranked. I'm not even mad about Iowa being ranked. I'm mad about these three teams being ranked. It pisses me off. It made me so mad. I was truly breathtaking when I saw it. When I saw Oklahoma at 20, I started texting all my football friends. I could not believe my eyes. I sat there in awe. I sat there in complete and utter awe that Oklahoma was at number 20 and Wisconsin was at number 19. I actually wasn't too crazy about Wisconsin. It was really just Oklahoma. This one has just slowly been boiling. It has slowly been boiling. This one was an erupting volcano. And it didn't stop. This is ridiculous. But I went crazy. A lot of people also went crazy. Overall, I'd say I agree with about 70% of this list. They nailed some right on the dot that line up with my personal agreement. The top four looks pretty good. I'd probably swap these two teams, but that's it. The only things that really stood out were these three teams and Clemson. And Tennessee being very low. Tennessee being very, very low. Clemson and Tennessee should pretty much swap. And these three teams should not be in the fucking polls. That's my take. That's simply it. Now, go ahead and let me know what you think in the comments because I truly love this stuff. I love debating about football. It's so much fun. So please, if you see this and you have a take, let me know in the comments. A like would also help. And that is all for me. Adios.